Good evening, everybody. It's Lou Santiago. John is waiting in the wings, and so is our guest, Scott Sullivan. And I just want you guys to know, about 2 years ago, I made the comment that Pro Street is dead. So we decided to bring in the guy who essentially is the godfather of Pro Street, Scott Sullivan. And he thought that we were so important that he actually went out and got a haircut to be on tonight. That means something. We don't know what it means, but it means something. So just keep that in mind when you're talking to Scott. He had his ears lowered. Just keep that in mind. So, I know there's going to be a visual there for you guys who are listening in. Just think about that for a minute. Take it in. Let it all soak in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a commercial break. I'm going to bring back John. We're going to talk about whatever day's events we have. And then we're bringing in Scott Sullivan. Boom, boom. Hit it, Brad.
For more than 25 years, DEI has been controlling heat and sound, all with products developed to protect components and drivers alike, and has become the standard by which all heat and sound control is measured. Each product is developed with solutions to problems in mind. DEI knows when it comes to making and keeping horsepower, heat is the enemy. Innovative technology allows us to develop the highest quality products, quality driven, and that's why the best builders and race teams in the world use DEI.
John? Are we going to get to see Jay Leno walk by?
You got to look real close. He's back there. I pickpocketed the keys. So.
Jeez.
Power Tour.
So okay, wait a minute. Wait. Before you talk about Power Tour. Yeah. So did you hear what was said? Where's it at? Hold on. Did you hear the speech where Biden was saying, what if the prostitutes had immunity from prosecution?
Yeah, he was all jumbled up. He can't get a sentence out. It's really sad. It really is.
I just thought it was funny that he said prostitutes.
It's a shame. I told you that I was hanging out at a place right maybe 6 minutes away from his house, and it was an off-duty cop, black girl, and she's standing at the bar, and I can hear her talking. So we got to chatting. She was protecting Biden. She was running service for, because she was a Delaware Wilmington cop. And she says, that guy, this was a year and a half ago. She says, he doesn't even know where he is. He's clueless.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to hear it from her, the way that she said it.
Yeah.
So, people around here know, as you know, I'm 10 minutes from his house.
Yeah.
Maybe 15 if there's traffic.
Well, now you're about 3,000 miles from his house,
3,000 miles. Yeah.
Coming to you from Burbank, California.
Leave all the lights on. Jay's got money. Speaking of DEI.
Okay, so Power Tour. What were you saying now about Power Tour?
The Power Tour. We got to figure out what we're going to do. I didn't hear back from Ralph on the red eye. I don't know if
he doesn't love us.
He doesn't love us. He used us and abused us, was on a show and bolted.
He didn't even leave the money on the nightstand.
Right? God. But what I wanted to tell you is I went and checked out a 71 C10 a couple days ago.
Yeah, I see that on the notes.
And this thing here, it looks ratty. It's got an LS53 in it. I took this thing for a ride. I said to the guy, jump in, let's go. He's like, you want me to go with you? I said, yeah. Lou, I was doing about 35 miles an hour down his road.
Yeah.
He says to me, he goes, stand on it. He goes, get on it. I kicked that thing in. It broke the loose about 35, 40 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Scared the shit out of me because I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
It gets up, but I'm thinking that would be pretty. I mean, you could drive it anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be, I was checking that out because I think I can get a pretty good deal on that one.
Dude, get it. We'll make it. We're driving around with that.
Right?
Yeah, do that. Get it. I mean, that worked.
We got to open event windows.
And we can always fix that up.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it cool.
Yeah. Plus, what's it, AMD?
Yeah, AMD's got parts for it.
Yeah.
And
that would make it. I need a door.
Yeah, and we need to talk to AMD because they want us to do the SEMA thing.
Yeah, they want us to do the podcast from their booth.
Yeah, which would be cool.
Delaware police are looking for me.
It's gonna be a
They know where I'm
3-ring
at.
circus.
Come get
It's gonna
it.
be
I'm telling
a
the truth.
3-ring circus.
Yeah.
We're gonna need handheld mics so we can go out in the crowd and yell at people.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do something, right? We're gonna have to drag Brad out, producer Brad.
Brad would love it. He would love
Right?
it. He'd love
Motel
it. It'd be
6.
good. It'd be good for everybody.
The other thing you forgot to mention, Lou,
What did I
is
forget to mention?
next week, 420.
Yep.
Viewers.
420.
People got to send in their stories, their cars, their builds. You want to come on the show? We're going to bring a few people on and chat it up.
I didn't forget that. I figured it'd be better when you say it and I agree to it.
Oh, okay.
Just like if you guys have questions, we're going to answer them at 8:45.
I got there's 2 people that I've seen that emailed in that I think would be real good. There was a couple others that were just incomplete stories.
Yeah.
It was I don't even understand what they're saying. It was just short.
I looked I think it was last Thursday. And
yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot there, so I was going to check again tomorrow.
Yeah, I was on Monday.
Yeah.
I think it was a couple deleted, a couple were forwarded to Brad.
Yeah.
There's a couple on there, but I know of two that are real good stories.
Yeah,
so
we'll make it happen. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Outside of that, I ain't got a whole lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Bruce from Delaware, he's getting his back surgery done.
He call you today?
Yep, I talked to him today. He's getting his back surgery done. He's good to go. They're going to fuse L4 and 5, I believe it is, to S1. So they're going to do that. Yeah.
How's that compared to what you got done?
I got my whole lower back done. Like they fused L1 to T12 and then all the way down to S1. Yeah. I got the whole shooting match done. That's what I did.
Did you walk him through it? Tell him I'll be okay?
Yeah. Of course I did.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
Yeah, that's cool.
I just, and the big thing is I told him, I said, you got to make sure from here on out your wife does reverse cowgirl on you. That's all. You don't want to bust up them hips too hard and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Did you actually tell him that?
No, but he heard it now because he's on. I saw him post the thing on. I saved it for now because now he's thinking of an answer. He's like,
and he doesn't have a microphone. Yeah,
he doesn't have a microphone, so he's really screwed up. But he told me today it was because of Scott that he pro-streeted his car.
Oh, there you go.
That's what he told me. Yeah. So there you have it.
There you go.
So, I mean, there it is there, right there, Bruce Chase. See? He told me that. Yeah. So, Pro Street, and it's funny because when we were doing that, that one episode of Car Fix, I said Pro Street's dead. It was just like a casual comment. Man, the pushback I got on that one was great. The Pro Street page on Facebook blew up. Any press is good press.
Yeah, it reminds me of a couple things. One, your Facebook page, we were able to make you a public figure instead of a business. They just recognized you now as a public figure. How goofy is that after all this time?
Well, maybe, you know what? Maybe that's why I was my friend Jim sent me a video of a Kenworth that he's found on Facebook. And usually I can't look at that stuff. It won't let me look at it even through my phone.
Yeah.
So I clicked on it just to see if it would go. And it let me in. Facebook hasn't let me in years. It let me in. So I need to go back. I need to go on there and check. I didn't realize that they recognized me as a public figure.
Yeah. Well, they changed the format. They were like, do you want to change the format to? And I'm like, yeah, click on it. Yeah. It's still some of the things overlap, but it's a plus because that changes things in the algorithms and shit, I guess.
Yeah.
We picked up,
if they let me on, that would be awesome. If I can get on.
About 15,000 followers in the last week and a half.
Holy crap.
Not likes, but followers. Followers are going through the roof. The likes are still floating around 31,000. The followers are like 130.
Yeah.
135 or so. I don't understand what the hell the difference is, but whatever. The other thing is too, did you see, I posted on Instagram and Facebook, a guy duplicated my account on Instagram,
I
took
saw
my pictures,
that.
the whole thing.
I saw that.
He started messaging people because he had my profile picture, and he's telling people that I need money. Can you send me money for Bitcoin? I'm like, I was getting phone calls. One guy says, yo, you hit me up last night, wanted to talk to me. I said, I did no such thing. He says 3:00 in the morning. I said, hold on, maybe I was drinking. I don't know, because he had me convinced. I went on and looked. I said, no, I didn't send you shit. He says, no. He said, you said, what's up? I'm like, dude, wasn't me. So that was the first red flag. Then I went and found the account. Then Shag from Iron Resurrection, he followed it. So I had hit him up and told him, I said, it's not me. You know, because I knew the person's asking for money and I don't know what people are doing. You know, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
So I reported the account. Everybody else reported the account. I got a message today. Says they're too busy to look into it and they're not deleting the account.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking, say something bad about the president, you go into jail.
Yeah.
Duplicate and steal somebody's ID. You're good. Don't worry about it. We don't have time for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because to them, it's not a crime. It's not a crime. It's a harmless crime.
They said if you don't agree with this, block them or restrict them. Or I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, but the problem is that doesn't stop him from going to everybody else
and hitting people up and having them think that it's me.
Right.
Hey, yo, and just keep trying to shake. And I'm thinking, who sends somebody like that online money? He goes, oh yeah, I'll give in.
Yeah,
you know, somebody
a lot of people do dumb stuff.
Yeah, it looked just like my account. I mean, the guy did a nice job.
Well, if we need a computer guy, we know who to go to.
Oh, he's probably in India or China or someplace. He's not in the States. I wonder how many other people he does that to.
Oh, I'm sure a lot.
And why me?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot. Because you have a brand now, John. You're important. You are somebody.
Superstar.
All right, look, let's go to a commercial. Let's get Scott in here because we got lots of lies to tell. All right. Hit it, Brad.
What you need to do is check out DEI, Design Engineering Incorporated. They keep the heat out so you're not sweating to death. Check them out.
Scott.
There he is. Don't move.
Wait, I have something to say.
Whose phone is not on stun?
He can't move.
I can't move.
I have something to say. First, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for being on the show. And then I realized it was your show, and I should probably just be quiet.
What good is that?
At least for now. You know, so you were talking about your Facebook account. They did the same thing to me. Somebody cloned my page.
Yeah.
And actually, Rocky Robertson was the first one to report it, but a bunch of people reported it. And so I had reported it, and it came back to me and basically said, no, we looked into it, and that didn't happen.
Yeah. A buddy of mine said he thought that it was Instagram that actually does that because the guy had the same amount of followers. It was pretty close. And the same amount of people following him.
Yeah, I don't think it's a copied page. I think it's just your page that they've taken control of. I don't know, whatever. But again,
they do it so they can get more money. That's why Instagram and Facebook do it.
He put an extra N. He put an extra N. He misspelled it. First, he took one of the N's out, and then when I called him on it and said it was fake, then he put another N in it.
Oh,
and then he actually posted that my account was fake, report my account, and he was the real Slim Shady. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I mean, that was just like, this guy's got a lot of time on his hands for what?
Well,
$27? I mean,
if I didn't feel that Facebook was productive to promote myself, there's no fucking way. Did you guys see the with the Social Dilemma?
No.
There's this movie. You need to watch this. You really do. Everyone, you need to watch this. It's on Netflix. It's called The Social Dilemma.
Is that the
And
one where they talk to like Google employees and they talk about how they're not they don't
Facebook
even
employees.
Yeah, I did see
They
that. Yeah.
talk about all the real shit that's going on.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It's
It
like
is.
you
I'll
say, you
check
get in
it out.
Facebook jail for whatever.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I had made a comment one time about having some interaction with a bull dyke, and I got reprimanded, and I was like, that really didn't solve anything when I was having the interaction.
Yeah, you
Still
can't
a bull
go
dyke
feed
no
one
matter
idiot.
what.
Yeah, it's something, but whatever. You know, that's what I'm saying. You say something that they don't agree with, instantly they know. Before you even plug it in, you're about to hit send. You know this is offensive. You sure you want to do this? This guy hijacks the whole account. You're good. Let it go. 35 people tell him it's a fake account. Nah, we'll wait. We'll wait till he turns himself in.
Are you going to finish that, by the way?
God.
Whatever. Right.
And actually, the first, and everyone knows this by now, that our phones are listening to us.
Yeah.
And the first time that we had really confirmed that, a buddy and I were on a treadmill, not together. He had his own separate treadmill. But anyway, we were talking of all things, we were talking about train horns, because my customer we took an air ride system out of the car, and he said, hey, I still have a compressor in the car. Well, let's get a train horn.
Yeah.
So I was telling my buddy about it. 15 minutes later, an ad for train horns comes up on my phone. Train horns?
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, from now on, when we're together, all I'm going to talk about circus midgets.
There you go.
Let me see an ad for that.
They'll ban you without even doing anything. We don't like this guy.
Yeah.
I was telling Lou, I fell asleep with the because I get tired of watching it, so I clicked on the Mexican Latino MTV where I can't even understand what they're saying.
Oh yeah.
Well, my phone is on the table, coffee table in front of the TV. I wake up the next day and my ads are in Spanish.
Everything's in Spanish. Yeah.
And then they said, if you want to send, I get one of the ads on Spotify saying, if you want to send money home, we have a service. There was some ad for a service to send money back home because they thought I was Spanish. So they're listening.
They thought it was a can.
Yep.
They're definitely in.
I watch the Mexican Weather Girl on YouTube all the time. You know, you always got to check them out.
Well, there you go. You got to check the weather.
I get ads in Spanish and all that. Yeah, I get all that. So it's pretty comical.
I've seen her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a couple of them, and I'm here to tell you. Woo! Yeah. Damn it, man.
Let's see if we get him on as a guest.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be good?
Have her do the weather for an hour.
Good.
In Spanish. We'll just act like we know what she's saying. Give a shit. 220,
So Scott, I mean, I know you sent us a picture of it. The first car you ever owned was a Volkswagen. Brad, put that Volkswagen up. I think this is humorous because, you know, you're Scott Sullivan and you own a Volkswagen.
It's humorous because I was 15 years old, and my mother, in her infinite wisdom, decided that the smartest thing to do would be to buy me a car that the engine was blown up. So she paid $50. She paid $50 for that Volkswagen, and that's the Volkswagen 8 months later.
I tell you, that's one of the nicest Volkswagens I've seen. That's actually pretty cool.
That was 1972.
What plate is that? It looks like a Delaware plate.
Ohio.
Is it? It must be pretty close because the same.
Again, 1972.
Yeah, 72. They had a dark plate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's.
And then after that, I take it that started you in your hot rod journey.
I traded that Volkswagen, and to this day it boggles my mind. I traded that Volkswagen for the Dodge Demon.
What?
And the Dodge Demon was 2 years old.
Wow.
It was in 73. And it was
crazy.
It was plum crazy purple and 344 speed. And I traded it on a Friday night, and Sunday afternoon it was in every piece that would come, and all the paint was stripped off of it.
Wow.
Damn.
That's a pretty good deal.
That was my daily driver.
That's crazy. I did not know that, man. That car was 2 years old when you got it?
Yeah.
And it was a 344 speed car.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude, that car's worth a mint now.
the gentleman that cut my hair, we were talking about the cars that you've owned that are really worth a lot of money now.
Yeah.
And, I told him, I said, anytime anyone brings that up in conversation, they're like, oh, if I only had that car now that I had 25 years ago. And the first thing I say to him is, first of all, you'd had to keep it all this time.
Yeah.
In storage. You'd had to restore it, et cetera, et cetera. Were you going to do any of that? No. Then don't worry about it.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same.
But frankly, I think, and I'm sitting here, I just had the discussion. I probably have owned 2 cars that were really valuable now. Maybe 3, but not much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the bottom line is, in your case, what made those cars valuable was the magazine coverage you got.
Oh, right. No, I'm talking about, I had done a deal and I had a 70 Corvette 454 4-speed with air.
Damn it, man. Yeah.
And
that's a valuable car now.
Yeah.
Correct. And then what was the other one, though? I'm sitting there talking about it. I can't even think.
It was so valuable you can't remember.
An original 68 Z28. Oh, I know the one I was talking about. A buddy of mine just acquired a 35 Ford 5-window. Yeah. I had a 36 3-window. And I didn't pay very much for it. And it was, at the time, it was even supposedly worth a big pile of money. And I made money, but I didn't make a lot. But I'd love to have that now.
Yeah. Yeah. I could rock that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But like I say, I mean, of all the cars I've owned, there haven't been a lot of matching numbers, blah, blah, blah,
Well, you're that guy that cuts them up like me.
Correct.
You're going to make it what you want. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. 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 So that's pretty crazy. So, okay. I know when I first met you in, I think it was 2004 at the Grand National Roadster Show, we talked about the Chevy II. So tell everybody how that came about, because at the end of the day, that was a groundbreaking car.
Right.
Brad, put it up. The blue one, the Chevy II, the Nova. That one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that there's a lot to talk about with that car. And actually I want to divert just a little bit, because you had mentioned making the Pro Street page blow up.
Yep.
All you have to do is post on the Pro Street page who built the first Pro Street car. Oh my God. It's every time. You could do it daily. Every day you could do it, and every day it
jump on it.
Loads.
Yeah.
So we need to go on the Pro Street page and tell everybody that you built the first Pro Street car, and nobody else knows what the hell they're talking about.
Oh my God, it'll go nuts.
Okay.
My great-great-grandfather had a Conestoga wagon. He put 2 sets of wheels on the back of it when he came to in 1888. I mean, it's insane. And I have posted. That's why I gave you that picture of that popular hot rodding.
Yeah.
That is the first time you will see the words Pro Street in print. And what had happened was, I took my Nova to the Street Machine Nationals in 1979.
Right.
And that Chevelle at the bottom of the picture, and my car, and actually, so let's back up a little bit. In 1979. In 1977, there was a silver 71 or 2 Camaro that said Street Squirrel. It was tubbed. And then they took that car and put like 7980 body panels on it later. But that was before my car as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, Steve Reyes shot my Nova for popular hot rodding, and they are the ones that coined the phrase. And actually, in the article, it says something to the effect of, we see a trend developing in the hot rod world that we would like to call Pro Street. These are the cars that best exemplify the style that we're talking about.
Right.
So it was my Nova, because even look, that Cougar is not even tubbed.
Right. Right.
But anyway, that's, but if you say who built the first Pro Street car, people immediately take that as who had the first tubbed car on the street.
Right.
We were making a joke. You know who had the first tubbed car on the street? The guy that had a trailer flat and needed to get the drag strip.
There you go.
Whatever that was.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yep. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, who's the biggest badass, blah, blah, blah. You can't answer that question. It's not possible.
Yeah.
And even some Hot Rod Magazine articles recently I've seen say that Grumpy Jenkins had the first pro street car because of the Vega. It's like,
yeah, but that was a legitimate drag car.
Correct. Jack Roush had the first pro street car. You remember the silver? No, silver 60 or silver Mustang 2.
Yeah. Okay, I remember that car.
10-inch rims on it and under it. So people go on and on and on. Like I said, just post that. Who had the first pro street? Oh my God! And watch the fireworks. It's great.
Yeah, John, you know what our job is going to be now.
Yeah. We should have done that and then we're going to answer the question on here. Yeah. To start shit.
Yeah, somebody just posted. Unfortunately, people say that Rick Dobberton's Nova.
Yeah.
Rick Dobberton's Nova was 3 years after mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, back to my Chevy II. And let's back up further than that. As you see in the picture of my Dodge Demon, in that picture, it has 1432s on it. Mm-hmm. But that's after I sold it to my friend. What I had it had 11.5 Ws, which are about 13 inches wide on a 9-inch rim, but they were in the fenders.
Yeah.
That was 1974.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, and to back up a little bit on my history, I'm from Ohio. So I grew up going to the drag strip every weekend and modified production and gassers and I was exposed to all that stuff. Fred Hurst, George Montgomery, Billy the Kid, all that's Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
And so, heavily influenced by all that. And, when Grumpy Jenkins Vega came out, that was tires tucked in the fenders, I had to have it. And I actually tried to buy a Vega that was done as a race car, and I tried to buy it less Motor and Trans. It was like $1,800, and I couldn't afford it. And that was in '74, I think. But that Nova had come up in our local trading post for sale, and I knew the person who back halved it. I knew of his work. He's really, really a badass. And it was Maximum Performance Race Cars. It was Max.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
And so this ad came up, and I called about the car and talked to the guy. Same deal. I think it was $1,800 for the body. And I didn't have $1,800. So I lost that car. Well, sometime after that, I ran into a friend, local neighborhood guy who almost the same age, and we had mutual friends. And he said he just bought a race car. And I said, really? And he started describing it. And I said, Buckeye Express? And he said, yeah. And I said, oh, my God. I said, I tried to buy that car. I wanted that car. Oh, my God. That car had original paint on it.
Really?
It had a vinyl top on it, and it had original paint. It was a really, really nice Nova. And so I said, you got to sell me that car. And my buddy said, no. He said, I'm going to go drag racing. He had a GM worker, made plenty of money. And he said, I'm going to go drag racing. I said, let me tell you what drag racing is all about. Said, you go to the racetrack. You sit there in the staging lanes for hours and hours and hours. You make 3 passes in one day. Mm-hmm. I said, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you blow that engine up, there you go. There's another 15 grand. He blew the engine up in 2 weeks.
Oh, my God.
And he called me and said, come get this piece of shit. So that was 1976.
Yeah.
So I bought the car, and I didn't even have a garage. I put it in my next door neighbor's yard and built my garage before I could do the car.
So, Scott, you're like 21 at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty young to be able to do that and be into it at that age.
Well, and I tell everyone, my history, no, my father wasn't interested in cars. No, and I had a cousin that took me to a lot of places when I was young. He took me to the drag strip first. He took me to Cobo Hall, Detroit, Autorama.
Yeah.
Almost every year. I mean, I entered the model car contest there when I was like 12. But anyway, then I had a neighbor down the street named Mike Yaley, and he basically taught me how to paint, how to do mechanical work. He was real meticulous, and my Chevy II, it was a small block car, and I wanted to put a big block in it, so I guess we cut the shock towers out, but he welded them back. So this, my mentor throughout all this stuff. But like I said, by the time I was 13, I was painting motorcycles for his friends, and they bought me my first airbrush. That Volkswagen, we painted it in his garage, and did all the candies and blah blah blah. So I had a lot of experience by 21.
Yeah.
And then one other thing I'll talk about, because of, in particular, the paint. There was a local painter in northern Kentucky, just on the other side of the bridge in Cincinnati, named Bill Roll, and his nickname was Short Round. And he painted just about every drag race car that I got to see every week. And he was amazing, amazing. He's the one that painted Billy the Kid, the first Barracuda. I mean, This guy was incredible. So all I would try and do is to copy his style, you know what I mean, with the colors, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a good kickoff point, because and it taught me a lot, because it took me a long time before I would go away from trying to emulate him and just create my own style.
Yeah.
As far as paint is concerned. But really, the Chevy II that's probably a transition, because the stripe on the side with the acetylene, that was all Short Round. But yet at the same time, the Super Sport emblem, and that was a necessity deal. I made a fiberglass trunk lid, fiberglass hood, fiberglass bumpers, and I put the stock Super Sport emblem on the trunk lid. And the first time I tried to lift the trunk lid off the car, the cast Super Sport emblem weighed a ton. So I thought, oh, this isn't going to work. So I took it off. I filled all of that and made it flat, and then painted the Super Sport emblem on it. So that's, was the beginning of painting trim on stuff.
Right.
How old were you when you got your first coverage in a magazine?
17.
17.
And it was the Demon. Actually, there was
the Demon. I didn't know the Demon was in the magazine.
It was just oh dear, let me think of what it was called. It was in Carcraft, and it was just a little blurb, like, it wasn't Reader's Rides, but something.
It was like
similar.
that. Yeah.
That's still pretty cool. That's young. It means you're making a difference at 17. You're way ahead.
Yeah.
No, seriously. Let's talk about Whiz.
What?
I got to tell you, when I hear Cheese Whiz, being outside of Philadelphia, that's how you order your cheesesteak.
Really?
Listen, when you go to order a cheesesteak, you don't ask for a cheesesteak when you're in Philly. You name cheese, and then you say with it, because you want onions. So you'd go Whiz with, means you want a cheesesteak with whiz and onions.
Oh my God.
So that's the thing, is Whiz with or provolone with, but Cheese Whiz is big in Philly as far as the cheesesteaks. People love it.
Yeah, so I was ahead of the game, even as far as that
goes. So let's talk about Whiz with.
Okay. Which actually, the name is interesting how that came about, because prior to that, and I got to think that's probably the first time. Prior to that, I always thought that naming your car was just as childish and stupid as it could possibly be. And when a very dear friend of mine and I built that car together, took 3 years. His name was Joe McCormick, and he was the funniest fucking person you ever met in your life. No matter what you're doing, he would do stuff to amuse himself. I would be working, and I would look over, and you just bust out laughing immediately, because he's over there like la 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 doing whatever. But anyway, so we were having the discussion where when the 55 gets in a magazine, they always have to have a lead name, et cetera, et cetera. And we were like, yeah, sun-kissed orange. Yeah. and Joe goes, it's Cheese Whiz. And so we started laughing, and that was the end of that. And then when Jeff Smith and I were driving out to California, Jeff's a really, really promotional, he's constantly thinking of ways to promote things, et cetera, et cetera. And I told him the story about, saying that the car was Cheese Whiz. And boy, that led to us, hey, let's have an IV with a hose going into the engine. Hey, let's pour Cheese Whiz all over the back of the car. Hey, let's do this. But Cheese Whiz is actually much, much more yellow.
Yeah.
So I had to take red food dye and I put Cheese Whiz in a microwave and got it real soupy and then dyed it till it matched my car.
Yeah, it is more yellow.
And then when we poured it on the trunk lid, it's running down the trunk lid, and there's a belly pan underneath the back. So you can't really access that area easily. So it's running down and getting ready to go behind the bumper. I'm like, come on, Jeff, take the picture, Jeff, take the picture, Jeff. Come on.
Scott, explain, Jeff. You skipped over it and explained the ride out to LA, out to California.
It's interesting that there's a lot more to that story that I have told over the years, but I mean, I could go on and on about some of that. But to this day, the first thing is, and actually after owning that car all this time, so now my current ride, 54 Chevy, 427 Scoggin Dickey LS base motor, giant camshaft, manual transmission, and it's fun. But if I get in Cheese Whiz, as soon as I touch the key, every time I jump. Like, oh my God, oh dear, oh.
Yeah.
But anyway, when we drove to California, Jeff and I got in the car and we were on I-75 going up to I-70, which is where you go across the country.
Yep.
And just before we got on 70, I looked at Jeff and I said, I cannot believe we're doing this. I mean, it had a 290 gear in it when on the trip. Basically, it didn't even come off the cam. It just loped down the freeway at 70.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I said that to him. And then I said, and I'm going to tell you something else. No matter what happens, I'm the luckiest person you've ever met in your life. And he was like, okay. So I had already ironed out a lot of problems with the car prior to leaving, but not all of them. First thing, started breaking rocker arm studs. And I even put a stud girdle on it, girder thing, and we still broke one. But because I had done it in the past, I got ARPs, and we ended up changing them, at least some of them in Kansas. But the other thing was when the car got hot, the carburetor would start to percolate.
Yep.
And it'd start running badly. And that would happen occasionally. But as we're driving, Jeff really, you get to know someone. I mean, I've known Jeff for years, but I didn't spend this much time with him.
Right.
And everybody has their idiosyncrasies. I'm not really going to say much, except Jeff really, really likes the smell of gasoline. And every time we stopped for gas, he would say, hey, let's stagger the jets. Hey, let's take that power valve out. Let's put a power valve in the front and not in the back. Let's put one in the back and not in the front. Let's change every step. And by then, I mean, I'm just thinking, well, whatever, you're having a good time. But we did. And then occasionally it would screw up. I was getting dirt in the fuel line, dirt in the fuel line. But anyway, so we would have to take the metering block off and blow them out. So we did do that a lot across the country. And God, let me think of what all else, because there's a lot of stuff. 16 pages is a lot for a magazine article.
Yeah, I
And
remember. I remember that. Yeah.
we talked about the fact that we couldn't tell everything. And frankly, some of the stuff happened on the way back because, which there's another one. I got pulled over in, I think that was in the story though. I got pulled over in Arizona, State Highway Patrol. They just wanted to see the car. Got pulled over in Kansas. They just wanted to see the car. But when I got to LA, well, no, let me back up. So we were pulling out of Vegas, and to my left, I was seeing the most intense electrical lightning storm I've ever possibly witnessed in my life. It was for miles. It was probably, who knows how many miles away, but the lightning bolts were straight up and down. There were billions of them. It was like a curtain of lightning.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. And I said, Jeff, we got to get a picture of this. And he said, well, I'd probably need a tripod to do it justice. And I said, we're driving a tripod to set the camera on the car. And he said, okay. So we were going to photograph this. Well, at the same time, it started raining really, really, really hard. So hard, in fact, that everyone on the freeway was exiting the freeway. There was an exit ramp, and I always screw this up. It's no, I'm not going to screw it up. It's Baker, California. And the exit ramp goes off to the right, continues straight, turns into the road, and then only goes for a couple miles or so, whatever, and then gets back on the freeway. And there are just gas stations and restaurants, et cetera, on that road. So everyone was exiting the freeway as we were. And there was a gas station, an abandoned gas station. We pulled into it underneath a canopy.
Right.
And probably, and again, I'm not good, 50 yards, there was a field and there was another abandoned gas station. So we were sitting in the gas station. At this point, it's raining sideways.
Yeah.
And I looked over out my driver window, and there was a 55-gallon drum sitting there. And I said, Jeff, look over here. And he looked, and I said, that doesn't look good to me. I started the car up and backed up 15 feet. That barrel took off immediately after that. It went right where we were. So we sat through this storm, and this is the God's truth. Well, first of all, there were power lines, telephone poles running the length of the street. Starting from the furthest away coming towards us, each one was exploding.
God.
So now it's black. And when it was all done, probably 40 minutes, it was a long time. The gas station that I described 50 yards away was gone.
Really?
Completely gone.
Holy shit.
And when we got into California, rare tornado in Baker. Like, yeah, we were sitting in it. So that was one that, Jeff didn't get to tell. And then I got to California and started driving my car around LA. And, you got to keep in mind, I was in California one other time, but, California is supposed to be the big hot rod deal, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And everywhere. I mean, in Ohio, I drive that car around. The police don't even look at it.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. Out there, they stare you down. I mean, like, oh my, and out of state tag too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I was on, and there was another testimony to the car one day, Sunday afternoon. I'm on the 101 freeway, and it was 101 degrees out, and I'm in bumper to bumper traffic, and there's no place to pull over. It's curb. There was curbs on each side of the freeway. So there, you couldn't pull over.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sitting in traffic in that car, watching my temperature gauge going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It made it to 201 and it never went over that. So that's, like I said, all these little things that had happened to me out there. I got on the freeway one day and it was going about 20 miles an hour. And I pulled on right next to the highway patrol. And that guy kept looking at me. And I was like, well, pull me over. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? He didn't do anything. But let me think. Oh, Kevin Doyle and I went to Hollywood on a Friday night.
Oh, God.
We were on Hollywood or Sunset Boulevard, just out of Beverly Hills into Hollywood, and a motorcycle cop comes flying up next to us, slams on his brakes, and he said, "Don't take that car up on Hollywood Boulevard." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "You couldn't afford the tickets you'd get." He says, "As a matter of fact," he goes, "you'd be wise to just turn around and take that thing out of here."
Wow.
Like, okay. So I made a U-turn, started back out, just got past the Beverly Hills sign on Sunset Boulevard again. Now we're back, heading away from Hollywood. Motorcycle cop pulls us over. Guy walks up to the car. First words he says is, "Don't tell me you drove this from Ohio."
Should be up on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah. I said, "Yeah, pretty much."
Yeah.
And he said, it's so low. And I said, "So?"
Oh, boy.
And he said, I said, "Take a flashlight, get on your hands and knees and shine a light underneath this car." I said, "There's nothing hanging down." And he said, "I've got a Lotus and I drive it it drags the ground everywhere." I said, "I built this car this way." I said, "There's nothing that hangs down on the car." And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I told him the article with Hot Rod, blah, blah, blah. And as it happened, as a matter of fact, that was on Friday night. I told him I was leaving to go to Vegas. It was either Sunday or Monday. And anyway, so then he says, "You don't have any windshield wipers." I said, "No." He said, "I suppose it didn't rain all the way from California or from Ohio." And I said, "I've got Rain-X on my glass." He said, "What?" And I told him what Rain-X was, and he goes, "I could use that on my motorcycle shield." I said, "Absolutely, you could." So he says, "So you're leaving LA, Sunday?" And I said, "Right." And he said, "You know what?" He said, "I'm not even going to bother with this." He said, "Just carry on." So he let me go. And then when we went to race the car, Palmdale was about 65 miles, I believe, from Jeff's house.
Yeah.
And so we were going to rent a trailer. Keep in mind, this is Hot Rod Magazine. And it's like, you don't know anyone that has a trailer? But anyway, as it turned out, and I'd never really realized or experienced this, my car's so low that you need a trailer with fenders wide enough to clear the front bumper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we couldn't find anything. So I said, "Okay, here's the deal." Because we put slicks on it. And it had 1432s on it. And I said, "How much is a traffic violation?" He said, $75. I said, "How much is trailer rental?" He said, $75. I said, "I'll just drive it. 50-50 chance we'll get caught."
Yeah.
So I drove it to Palmdale, fucked with it all day, got in the car to come home, looped around the freeway, getting on the freeway, State Highway Patrol right next to me. He starts backing up, or just going slower. Then he gets behind me, drives behind me for a little bit. Then he pulls me over. He walks up and he says, "The reason I pulled you over is because your back tires." I said, "What about them?" And he said, "They don't have any tread on them." I said, "Sure they do." He said, "No, they don't." I said, "Yes, they do." I said, "They have depth cups to show you how much tread you have." And I said, "Here." I got out of the car and I said, "See these little cups here?" I said, "That's tread depth." And he says, "Boy, I don't know. I don't think so." I said, "Well, sure it is." I said, "It's how thick a rubber you've got." And he said, "Well, it says right there on the tire, not for highway use." I said, that's not a law. That's a tire warranty. He says, I don't think this is legal.
I don't think it's legal.
Sure it is.
He went and got in his car, and I tell you what, I mean, sitting in my car, I'm watching him. He's looking above the sun visor. He's looking in the glove box.
Don't know what to do.
He didn't know what to do. So
Yeah.
finally, he said, I know that this isn't legal. And he said, he gave me a ticket for unsafe vehicle. And I just handed it to Jeff. Go ahead and pay that.
God. Well, and for those who don't know, wasn't the whole premise of the trip was get in this car, drive it to California, and then run nines, wasn't it?
I wanted to run 10 seconds because I knew, I mean, and I actually have built provisions in the car to put a roll cage in it when it would come in and out.
Right.
But once we got there, you know, I didn't want to mess with it. And we had pro stock guy, Ken Thurm, was going to come help us. Waddy from Nitrous Oxide Systems came to help us. And Hot Rod rented the track for the 55.
Wow.
And the first passes were no nitrous and just fooling around. And I put a 457 gear in it that I brought with me, and then the slicks on it. I think it ran like 1220s. And, you know, we're tinkering with this, that, and the other, 1150s, you know, 1120s, 1110. And 1110, I think, was 121. And I guess the owner of Palmdale's name, he was Bernie, and his wife was running the clocks. So after every pass, I would go up in the tower and get the ticket from her. Yeah. And I walked up there and I said, she said, did Bernie say anything to you about going faster than 120 miles an hour without a roll cage? And I said, no, he just said we couldn't go 10 seconds. And she said, okay. So the next pass was 1081 to 131.
Damn, dude.
And I walked in, I looked at the card, and I looked there, and I said, thanks, we're all done. but Ken Thurm didn't make it. And so we came back and called Ken Thurm, told us all that we had done. And I mean, and this is my drag racing inexperience. But Ken said, if my car went 131, he said, if you put a 16-inch tire on it, launch the nitrous from the starting line, and adjust the four-link, you could run faster than that car leaves the starting line. And I've actually even got a horrible video on, I don't know whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or both, but it's me doing some cheap burnout in the 55, and the car doesn't lift at all. But anyway, Ken said, if you'd have done those three things, that car would have went 990s.
Yeah.
But, you know, imagine that. You know, you're already skirting going 10s without a cage.
Yeah.
Well, you know. But anyway, here and there. So, drove from Vegas or from LA to Vegas with some gentlemen from, I think, Street Machine magazine rode along.
I remember that magazine.
And then put it in the SEMA show, and then left the SEMA show with Rocky Robertson. His car was out there. He was hauling his car in a truck and trailer, and the two of us drove back cross country with Joe McCormick. Flew out and was riding with me. And one night we stopped at a hotel in New Mexico, and we were in a sandstorm. And I think I was trying to put my car cover on and tie it on. And the people at the hotel were like, we get sandstorm so bad, it doesn't matter if you got a car cover. Your car's going to be bare metal.
Yeah.
And but anyway, sat through that. And then from St. Louis to Ohio, and you know, you're driving a car like that. Every gas stop, you check the oil, you know, check everything over. From St. Louis to Ohio, you know, the final 7 or 8 hours, it was snowing and icing. This is now November. So badly, there was about 1.5 inches thick of ice on my bra. I couldn't get the bra off the car.
Damn.
So, one other wonderful story. Car doesn't have a heater. And it's getting cold when we're going home.
Yeah.
And Joe and I figured out that if you go, because I guess they still exist, the machines that give hot coffee and hot chocolate.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hot.
Yeah.
Put that on your naughty bits. Put the cup between your legs. You're like, I'm good. How about you?
I think we got a couple of other pictures that Brad didn't put up of Whiz. I think there's one of the underside.
Yeah, there's one on the underside because I had it on a lift at my buddy, and that's a recent picture. Yeah. And the picture is really meant to testify. One of the theories that I had was you can detail your car and dry the snot out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not going to kill it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look, in real life, if you're standing there, sure, there's road rash from the tires behind every body brace. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? As you work your way back.
Yeah.
And then right there, you can see the pumpkin, where the pumpkin, there's some of the paint torn up. But come on, I'm not embarrassed. That thing's badass,
It is, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there another picture, Brad, or is it just the two? There's more.
I think that's it. I can't remember. I think that's it. Yeah, that's there's a story there. How the car came about in the first place. I was obsessed with Gary Kolosky's 55. And I mean, to this day, probably, in my opinion, one of the neatest cars that was ever built. And so I'd wanted a 55 Chevy, but never imagined owning one. And a local guy, the stereotypical, his brother had one. His brother went to Vietnam and didn't come home.
Yeah.
So he inherited this car. And I saw him. I was like, you want to sell this car? And he was like, oh, no, I could never sell it. It's my brother's, blah, blah, blah. Well, a year or two later, he calls me and he says, hey, I want to sell the 55. And he said, it doesn't run and doesn't have any brakes. And I said, what do you want for it? And he said, I don't know. Make me an offer. So I went to look at it. And here's me, Mr. Wheeler Dealer. I said, you know what? I'll give you $1,800 for it. I said, I suppose if you twisted my arm, I'd give you $2,000. Look at me go. So anyway, you want to make money, stick around. But so he sold it to me for $2,000. And I brought it home, pulled it in my garage, pulled all the wheels off of it, made 4-inch front rally wheels for it, was going to do a complete and thorough brake job on it. I'm in the back wheel well, piddling around with the rear brakes, and all of a sudden I stopped and I looked around and I thought, what the hell? I bought an absolute rust-free, perfect 55 Chevy.
No.
There was not a rust hole anywhere.
Whoa.
So within 2 weeks, I drove it for 2 weeks with rally wheels on it. And my buddy, Roger Lucas, wanted to tub his 57. So he wanted to practice. So he said, let's tub your 55. And I said, okay. So he actually back halved it with leaf springs. He actually did all of it. And we used the wheels and tires off of my girlfriend's 70 Chevelle Pro Street car, which I gave you a picture of. But anyway, she ended up driving that car in that state, tubbed, center lines on it. That was her daily car for like a year. She worked in a supermarket, sat in a supermarket parking lot.
That's cool. That's cool. So, hey, did you send any pictures of the 54?
No, and I don't think. And to be honest with you, between the new hot rod, last month, and then wheel hub, I thought, yeah, people are sick of it. Okay. Because one of the things that a philosophy I have, especially after owning the 55 after all these years, I mean, brought it out. I took it to a few shows for a couple years, and then I quit taking it to shows. And I might take it like every 5 years or so. But otherwise, it's just like, there's that orange 55 Chevy. It just won't go. Jesus. And I think the same thing about the 54. I mean, it's got a ton of exposure. Everybody knows about it. But everybody except for the 11 extra people that you picked up by me being on your show tonight.
Exactly.
So
That's why I was asking.
Yeah,
Because that car, John, that car has a pretty crazy history. He was taking it to, was it the first show? Was it the first show
no.
you were taking it to?
I had built this 54 Chevy. If you're not aware of the story, John,
He doesn't know it. I promise you, he doesn't know it.
I built a 54 Chevy, and actually that all started with a number of bad business deals, 3 in a row, and people had fucked me out of about 32 grand total. And again, stick with me, I'll make money for you. But I bought this 54 Chevy, and I was just gonna do some work on it and sell it and make money. But I've always liked 54 Chevys.
Yeah, I like them too.
And I started tinkering with it, and it's like, hey, I'm going to do this. Hey. And that just kept escalating and escalating and escalating. Long story short, because I have to make a living, it took me 8 years to build this car. And I get it done. Everything's done but upholstery. And I also have never owned a hauling vehicle, truck and trailer. So like the 54 needs to go to upholstery, I need to borrow a truck and trailer. So I call one of my buddies who's a drag racer, and he says, yeah, I'll hook you up. So he ends up bringing me a 33-foot long trailer that's not a gooseneck, and a Ford Excursion, triaxle trailer. And he opened the door, and every square inch, the whole length of the walls was tools, nut and bolt bins, air compressor tank, stuff. And I went, whoa. And then I thought, well, that stuff's supposed to stay there. So I pulled my car into the trailer. On his advice, where do I locate the car for tongue weight? And he says, put it right over the axles. So I did. And then he turned me loose, me and a female friend of mine, and I, what's the proper grammatically? Anyway, so
we're not issuing pronouns. It's okay. Keep doing what you're doing.
So anyway, immediately we got on the freeway, and the back of the Excursion started wiggling. And so I said, we've got the tongue weight wrong. So I pulled over, and I moved the car forward, probably 2 feet, and it was still wiggling. I did this a total, I believe, of 5 separate times in a row for a total of no more than 8 miles. I kept pulling over, pulling the car forward. Now, I was running out of room.
Yeah.
The car is really going forward in the trailer. And also, one of the D-rings in the trailer was not there in front. So we started driving, and it didn't feel comfortable. I'll just say that. And the other thing too, I hadn't had a ton of experience with diesel vehicles, but I always thought they were stumped pull anything on earth.
Yeah, right.
This Excursion was not having a good time. And so I was about 45 miles from my house, and the Excursion about 50 miles an hour was it. And it started wiggling, and within 20 seconds, it was absolutely out of my control.
Wow.
And the vehicle, what am I trying to say? Jackknifed. And now, I mean, it made a complete 90 degree turn, and we are headed straight for one of those 3-foot tall concrete abutments. And I was thinking, oh God, it drove over that like it was a curb. Went up on an embankment and rolled onto its side. I heard the back window of the Excursion blow up. So now I'm up in the air looking down at Elaine, who's, her window is the ground. And I'm like, are you okay? And she said, yeah. And so I unbuckled. Of course, I fell under her at that point. But, I'm up in the air. Anyway, I was like, where's the trailer? And I climbed out of the truck, and I'm looking around. I can't find the trailer. I'm thinking, oh, my God. And finally, I see the trailer had hit the wall that we had gone over. it just scooped up to the side and then skidded along that wall underneath a bridge. So basically, it parked itself, like and so I ran down to the trailer and I opened the little service door and I looked in at the car and I thought, oh boy, thank God. And I shut the door and I proceeded to call the truck owner and ambulance, fire trucks, blah, blah, blah. Millions showed up. And, of course, they shut down the freeway Sunday afternoon. Old Scott's kicking ass on 75. So at one point, I walked back down and I opened the trailer and I went in the trailer. My car had broken loose and hit the passenger side of the trailer, the right side, the entire length of my car. And so the guy that owned the truck and trailer, when I called and told him what had happened, he said, I'll be down to get you in a minute. He had an open trailer and he hooked it up to his half-ton truck and he came down, but he had to sit in the traffic jam that I created. And meanwhile, I'm talking to the police officer and I told him I needed to get the car out of the trailer. And he said, okay. He said, the only thing I'm going to tell you is don't hold up traffic. And I was like, well, I'm not, I'm over here.
Too late for that.
I'm not going to hold up anybody. And so then this rollback pulls up and I had the back of the trailer open and I think I was unbuttoning the car. And this little 4 foot tall sawed off bastard with a 10-inch long cigar out of his mouth comes walking up and he goes, you ain't taking that car out of that trailer.
He wants it.
I said, excuse me? And he said, you ain't taking that car out of that trailer. I said, the hell I ain't. And I said, he said something. And I said, you go talk to the police officer. I've already talked to him about it. And I pulled the car out of the trailer and my buddy showed up finally. And we threw the car in the trailer and headed home. And then, and actually that's a big, long story about the truck and trailer and that guy taking it, how safe it wasn't where he had it. But my buddy ended up just going and confiscating his trailer out from under him. They didn't even know it was gone. He took it. But anyway, so I brought my car home and I saw the real damage. It was everything. The entire driver's side, the roof. The only thing that wasn't damaged was under the hood and the trunk lid itself and the back bumper. But the entire driver's side looked like somebody took a shotgun and just blew down the side of it. It was 10 million bolts, that had pelted it. My driver window was open. This is not an exaggeration. I took a 5-gallon bucket and I filled it half full with nuts and bolts and hymens and little washers, and it destroyed my dashboard and my steering column and all my stainless on that side of the car and the front bumper and the hood ornament. And then the passenger side had a dent the size of a basketball right behind the headlight. And then the passenger door, a dent about the size of a beach ball in the middle of the door. The rocker was crushed and the quarter panel was crushed where they bow out. And I saw the damage and I actually just put the car in storage and pretended like that didn't happen for about 8 months.
How'd the interior look though?
Well, I never made it. That's where I was headed. So
I thought you were heading home.
Yeah,
when it was done.
No, it was naked.
I saw pictures of it. He sent them. It was one of those things. I call Scott like maybe every 8-9 months just to see how he's doing. And it had just happened like a week before. And he sent me pictures. I couldn't believe it, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those things that never happened to me. And back to that luckiest guy you ever met story, which actually I'd forgotten. That's back to the Cheese Whiz story and being lucky. If you want to go there, whatever you want to do.
Well, we got to run. When the screen gets set up like this, Brad is telling us get the hell off. We're done with our time.
Yeah, I thought about that. I thought about that before because I was like, this could go on for days.
We can always have you come back, Scott.
Okay, well,
because we still got to talk about the Black 57. The Henry J, the Firebird. There's so much stuff that you've done that's just really cool. So that
Yeah, we have to have a part 2.
Yeah, we may have to do that, but that's not a big deal, I'm sure, for you.
Well, you don't mind if I get something to eat, do you? Between
I
now
don't
and
mind.
then,
Go ahead. Yeah, it's fine. Do what you got to do. You know, I don't care.
I might need a sandwich.
There you go.
Me
There
too.
you go. All right, so here's how we're gonna do this, Scott. You're gonna say goodnight to everybody. Tell everybody where they can reach you at Instagram, all your social media stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So they know. And
Yeah,
then,
Instagram is Scott Sullivan Cheese Whiz. Facebook, all you can do is look, because I quit taking Facebook requests because it's too hard to negotiate between all the scammers. So basically, be Instagram, Scott Sullivan Cheese Whiz. I try to post most of the stuff there. Unless it's absolute nonsense, then I just do it on Facebook.
God.
And then I would love to be able to do my Jackie Gleason impression that the guy with the black 55, Mike Endicott, does. Good night, everybody.
All right, Scott, get out of here. So, John, there you have it. The Godfather of Pro Street graced us with his presence.
We got to have him back. There's more to it for sure.
Oh, dude, he's got so many crazy stories. And it's funny because, you know, I had Nathan with me it was like 0405 at the Grand National Roasters show. And Nate to this day, Nate still remembers Scott because he's one of those guys. He's just funny as hell.
Yeah,
you know. So it worked out pretty good. But yeah, he's a hoot, man, and he's done some iconic cars.
Pork Chop says happy early 420. He's on it. I just had to point that out. It's pretty funny.
The old tater tot,
Pop Tart, pork chop, whatever.
It's Pop something. We don't know.
We got to have him back.
Oh yeah, God yes.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed the show. Next week is the open show. So you know you gotta if you want to be on the show and you want to talk about your stuff, it's 3leftsdon't@gmail.com. Send us the email so we can look at the pictures and we'll reach out to you and we'll go from there. And then we'll be moving on. All right. John, say goodnight.
All right. Money's on the dresser.
All right. Later.